on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
7:06, O'Connor and Company. I promise I'm not going to bring up your bald head again for a while, though we will talk about tariffs a bit. At 7:35, Kuh-sh De-sigh, who is the Deputy Press Secretary at the White House, talk about yesterday's big event at the Rose Garden. 8:05, KT McFarland, and at 8:35, SBA Administrator Kelly Loeffler. I'm Larry O'Connor, alongside Cassie Smedile this morning, who is toiling away over a coin. That's coin with a silent G. That's right. Where you can sign up and apply for a Liberty freedom-based credit card.
Values aligned. Dare to be different, Larry.
Oh,
COIGN.com.
I try to do that every single morning, but my program director keeps saying, stop that. But it's usually when I dare to be different, it involves jazz hands and show tunes. So I think he has a point now and again.
I don't know. Be free to be you. We're a big tent party in the Republican Party.
Not that big. All right. I want to quote our friend Mark Hemingway. Mark Hemingway, of course, the long-suffering husband of Molly Hemingway. I don't know how he puts up with that woman. Jeez.
Oh, no comment.
We're kidding. We love Molly. That was it.
Yes.
That's where the humor is.
Well, sure. Fair.
Right. Mark Hemingway.
We love Molly. I was trying to defend Molly, but not anyway.
Mark Hemingway took to the X platform yesterday, commenting on an interview conducted by Robbie Suave over on the Hill. This is an interview of the authors of this new book about Biden. Now, apparently, let me surprise to everybody, apparently Joe Biden wasn't completely with it there when he was president. I know. Apparently there was some mental and cognitive and even physical handicaps there for him to perform his duties.
This.
Yes.
I have no idea.
Jonathan Allen, who was a journalist during that presidency but didn't really write anything about it, along with Amy Parnes at, I believe, Politico, who also was The Hill, actually. She's with The Hill, who also was a journalist during that entire time, but again, didn't write anything about it, but wrote a whole lot that they saved for their book that is now out. Yeah. They had more revelations about how bad Joe Biden was, and this is where we get Mark Hemingway's quote. I knew it was coming, but this whole now it can be told nonsense is really infuriating. And it really is. I mean, we were saying all last year, it's like, oh, I can't wait for the tell-all books. I can't wait for people to say what's really happening in this White House. But you know what? Now that we're actually seeing all of the things, it's like I am so ticked off about what they did and the gaslighting and accusing us. Remember the whole deep fakes thing or the cheap fakes? Cheap fakes, they called it, because we were showing videos and commenting on what was plain as day for everyone to see that he had lost it, and they demonized us as
full
propagandists.
Context, unedited. They're trying to make their money. But you know what? We didn't buy it anyway.
We didn't.
That's why you have 47th President of the United States.
And it's why you have media outlets and platforms like this where you can go and get the unvarnished truth, not the propaganda that they were peddling. But still, it's a little infuriating.
Sure.
So here's a couple of things. Now, the aforementioned interview that I was just pointing out, this specifically has to do with a fundraiser that Joe Biden went to. Now, this isn't some big theater or big arena. This is at a private home, a residence, and this is all the prep work they had to do.
He went to a small fundraiser, fluorescent tape on the floor to guide him where he needs to go. On foreign trips, there's a makeup artist who comes in first thing in the morning to kind of liven him up and do his makeup ahead of these meetings. He wasn't doing television. He was going into meetings. The first thing was to bring in this makeup artist to help him. And all of this we reveal in the book for the first time.
We reveal in the book for the first time,
brave.
But one assumes that they knew this at the time.
Yeah.
Fluorescent tape on the floor of a private house so he knew where to go. Otherwise, he would get lost and walk into walls or something. And not just any tape, fluorescent tape, because he couldn't see the floor, I guess, without.
And to your point of all of it, that they finally revealed they did know this. We knew they knew it all along. But how about those staffers? How about the people who attended those fundraisers and still wrote the checks after seeing that?
Yeah.
What's their in all of this? What are they getting out of all of this? I mean, talk about a grift.
Yeah.
They all knew that they could benefit from this, and the American people be damned.
Well, here's Ron Klain. Ron Klain was the chief of staff for a while there at the Biden White House, wasn't he? Here's from the book. Klain Whipple writes, wondered half seriously. I love that, half seriously. Wondered half seriously if Biden thought he was president of NATO instead of the United States. Quote, he just became very enraptured with being the head of NATO, he said. That wouldn't help him on Capitol Hill because, as Klain noted, domestic political leaders don't really care what Macron or Schultz think. Klain, fellow aides and visitors, including the film mogul Jeffrey Katzenberg, tried to get Biden into shape. 2 mock debates were organized focusing on domestic policy. The first was scheduled to last 90 minutes, but Klain called it off after 45. The president's voice was shot. So was his grasp of the subject. This is a sitting president of the United States who couldn't last more than 45 minutes in a domestic policy debate because of his lack of grasp of the subject. And nobody in the inner circle of the White House raised a red flag.
Again, you have to ask why that was. What did they stand to benefit? But also, this is making me think that I'd like a history of the auto pen. Does that keep a track record of how many times it was used and on what?
Exactly.
Because it's making me think that was exhausted. I bet the auto pen was tired of working.
Speaking of the debate, author and radio host Hugh Hewitt has a column at the Washington Examiner finding another part of this book, specifically about what happened in that ABC News debate. You know, the one that everyone said, Kamala nailed it, Kamala destroyed him, Kamala, which again is, by the way, another example of how the mainstream media is awful. How you need to hear our commentary so we can say, no, actually, I think Trump did better than you think. I think that he resonated with the people, and it looked like ABC News was ganging up on him, and that made him a sympathetic figure, and Kamala Harris is not likable. And, oh, by the way, a presidential debate ran and managed by the mainstream legacy media is meaningless. It doesn't matter. Even if you take their analysis that Kamala won the debate hands down, didn't really matter, did it?
Right.
So why are we doing these things and letting ABC News anchors manage them? But even more infuriating, they were cheating. They broke the rules of the debate, the moderators did, the so-called moderators at ABC News. They knew they were breaking the rules, and they didn't care. Let me read this from Hewitt's column. What Allen and Parnes reveal is that during the debate between President Trump and then Vice President Harris, Trump's campaign manager, Chris LaCivita, was furious with the ABC production team because moderators David Muir and Lindsey Davis had broken the debate rules in a one-sided fashion. The duo was, quote, fact-checking Trump and not Harris. By the way, one of those fact checks had to do with FBI crime statistics, which David Muir got wrong. Donald Trump was right. There were other fact checks that he got wrong. The ABC staffer cornered by LaCivita, John Stanucci, conceded the point and pleaded for patience, telling the justifiably enraged LaCivita that ABC knows there's a breach and that they were in their ears, referring to the earpiece worn by Muir and Davis, trying to stop the breach of the rules. As Hewitt says, game, set, match. We saw it. Santucci admits it. The GOP should never forget it. We should never have one of these presidential debates ever in the hands of one of these networks or journalists. I continue to maintain, I don't know why a person whose main skill set is to have a good haircut and read a teleprompter is somehow anointed by the Lord Almighty to be the moderator of a presidential debate. Take it out of the hands of journalists altogether, or have talk radio hosts do it, because we know what we're talking about.
There you have it. No fake news here, but I know you've been advocating for this for the better part of a decade.
Yes.
And we saw it.
You were at the RNC when a lot of this went down the last time,
yes,
right?
And where they expanded or they said, well, we'll give you one. I mean, and that's where we have to remember, too, that we hold a lot of cards. The party holds a lot of these cards. These debates give these, even networks, incredible viewership.
Thank you.
That they dream of.
Thank you.
So why do we put it in the hands of people who turn right around, even in real time, and knock on our party?
We live in the world of video streaming right now. Megyn Kelly gets more downloads for her 1-hour video podcast than NBC and CBS combined.
Yes.
Next presidential election cycle, the GOP is certainly during the primaries. GOP should say, yeah, these are our debates. We will produce it. We will stream it. We will choose our moderators. And if people want to watch, here's the link. Go and get it. But we're in charge, and we're not beholden to these networks. Grow a pair. Okay,
well,
sorry.
You're passionate about this.
I am.
But rightfully
I
so.
just realized the chairwoman of the GOP is biologically disinclined from growing a pair, but you know what I mean.
WMAL, making sense of the news.
Let's talk about a hero among us here. Amongst us? There's a hero amongst us here in the greater Washington area. University of Maryland student and athlete. She's a fencer, in fact. Her name is Stephanie Turner, and she was competing for a tournament, the USA Fencing Sanctioned Regional Tournament called the Cherry Blossom D1A Vet ROC. Don't know what that means, but it's a fencing thing. All right. Fencing is cool, by the way. Have you ever gone to a fencing, do they call them matches? I'm not sure.
Can't say that. Well, at the Olympics. I do
Yeah.
like watching it during the Olympics.
It's very high tech at the Olympics, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So fencing is pretty awesome. So this woman, and think about this, she's a University of Maryland. She's been competing. You compete at this level. You've been doing this for a while, and it's very demanding. A lot of discipline involved. Stephanie Turner was seen in a viral video now taking a knee at the very beginning, at the on guard moment.
Right.
She takes a knee, takes off her mask, and forfeits the match against a athlete named Redmond Sullivan. Redmond Sullivan is not a woman. Redmond Sullivan is a man who presents as a woman, known here as a transgender athlete. Switched from the men's fencing team to the women's fencing team while at Wagner College last year. Ms. Turner decided that rather than have to put her own safety at risk and compete in an unfair, there's a reason why there's men's fencing and women's fencing. You may think, fencing, well, what's the difference? Well, clearly there is a physical difference here. Otherwise, there wouldn't be men's fencing and women's fencing. There would just be fencing. And so she took a knee. She was then disqualified, and she's facing disciplinary action because of it.
Golly. I mean, our poor girls, but two things here. First of all, hats off to Ms. Turner, who took a stand. And here, I think Heather was saying, I hope you posted
Our
about
executive
this,
producer, Heather
Yes.
Hunter, has a great write-up at Washington Examiner about this, and she has interviewed this athlete,
Yes,
Ms. Turner.
she's got this true journalism here. But she said that she had previously sat out of tournaments if she knew that she was going to have to go up against a man.
Right. If there's advance notice, you see the roster,
Yes.
you know that you might have to compete against a transgender, a man presenting as women. She just wouldn't show, which
Wouldn't
would
show.
which
Right.
would be fine. Apparently, she's facing disciplinary action because you're not supposed to do this at the match, at the
tournament.
moment that the match happens.
But she wasn't aware until it was too late. And so
Right.
she took a knee. And now here, actually, this is getting noticed and this is raising the conversation yet again. And
Yeah.
as we've talked about earlier this morning, this is an 80-20 issue. This is something, there's few things that unite the country anymore.
Yeah.
And this is one of those issues where you have parents, women, students, just people who don't even have a dog in this hunt who are saying, this isn't right.
Yep.
This
It's
is
not right.
unfair, and she shouldn't have to compromise her career and her opportunities for doing what 80% of the country, and then some, I actually think that's conservative, think is the right thing to do, or she shouldn't have to be put up, is unfair.
That's right.
And I have to point out really quick, because she's got it in here, Martina Navratilova, who
Yes.
is no fan of Republicans, no fan of Trump. If you look at her Twitter on any other day, it's insufferable. But on this issue, she has been one of the few outspoken, notable female athletes who every time it happens stands up for women and girls in sports. And why does it have to keep happening?
This is one of those issues that can bridge across party lines, even for somebody who is absolutely insufferable on every other political issue like Martina Navratilova, and hard to follow. But on this, she is 100% right. And she knows from whence she comes because she was a world-class female athlete. But as the top female tennis star in the world, she knew very, very well that she could probably lose to number 200 in the rankings in the men's division. Because guess what? Men and women are different.
That's right.
And women's sports need to be protected for multiple reasons. By the way, I think can it be said that, yes, I'm just going to say it regardless. Ms. Turner will be on the show tomorrow. We'll speak with Ms. Turner, this fencing athlete, right in our backyard, University of Maryland. You know, the Terps are all excited about their new men's basketball coach. They should be excited about this woman. And, you take a knee for the Star-Spangled Banner or for the United States flag, you get a Nike contract. You get celebrated by college campuses. University of Maryland should be celebrating Ms. Turner. Something tells me that they're not. And this sport is disciplining her, as I said. I want to end with this. Are you ready? The International Fencing Federation is a thing. And they have obviously allowed for transgender athletes to compete. And it's always men competing. Have you noticed that women who identify as men don't invade men's sports?
Right. Yet to see one.
So This is my favorite part of this whole thing because they were asked, why are you punishing her? She forfeited the match. She would have not shown up had she known. But when she found out that she's going to have to compete against a man for her own safety and for her own integrity, she decided to forfeit right there. So just let her forfeit and move on. No, they're going after her. They're trying to punish her. And here's why. Are you ready? A fencer is not permitted to refuse to fence another properly entered fencer for any reason. Such a refusal results in disqualification and the corresponding sanctions. Get this. The policy exists to maintain fair competition standards and preserve the sport's integrity.
I have nothing to offer.
We are in Never Land here.
What is this?
723. Sorry, I just want to correct the record here. I don't believe Ms. Turner is a student at University of Maryland. It took place at University of Maryland, and that's why I led to that assumption. But you know what happens when you assume, Cassie Smedile? You know what you make yourself into.
You make a donkey.
Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
737 O'Connor and Company, where we answer the burning question of the day. In Greece, do they call Greek yogurt, or do they just call it yogurt?
Do people know about your yogurt journey?
I may have mentioned it. Yeah.
So this is.
In fact, when you're in China and you go out to a restaurant to eat dinner, are you going out for Chinese food or are you just having food?
I can't say, but I do know that when you're in France, they don't call it French onion soup.
No. Well, you're lucky if they talk to you at all in France. Coming up at 8:05, KT McFarland will join us. At 8:35, the administrator of SBA, Kelly Loeffler. That's Cassie Smedile.
Good morning.
I'm Larry O'Connor, and joining us right now, direct from the West Wing, White House Deputy Press Secretary KUSH DESAI. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Do you like Greek yogurt?
I do like Greek yogurt. I think they just call it yogurt there, but
I think you're right. I think that's the case. When you're in Greece, just order yogurt. You don't have to go the extra mile and regionalize it. Okay, so a big day at the Rose Garden yesterday on the announcement. First of all, I'm just curious. I don't think I've ever seen an assembly like that for a Republican president, where you've got UAW workers, you have factory workers, you also had titans of industry. Talk to me about how President Trump is sort of framing this and sort of remaking the economic coalition that has long made up the Republican Party.
Sure. Look, President Trump, he marketed yesterday would be Liberation Day, and that's exactly what it was. It was a historic announcement. And I think the workers who are present, the auto workers, the steam fitters, the steel workers, that's reflective of the people that President Trump really has in mind for everything he does. That's the American people. That's everyday workers who have most lost out from our country's broken free trade deals and the unfair trade practices of our trading partners. So this is an action to put them first.
So here's a question I've got for you, because you put out these really cool charts of reciprocal tariffs and great branding there, reciprocal tariffs, letting people know that you're just responding, not initiating this thing. But you've got, let me just grab one country here, Madagascar. I don't know what we trade with Madagascar. Lemurs? I don't know. But let's just say Madagascar for a minute. 93% tariff charge to the U.S. That's pretty cut and dry. Obviously, that's awful. But then you've got this other column, which is, in that, though, in the small print, it says, or currency manipulation and other factors, right? Can you explain what that means exactly? Because it's not like Madagascar says, okay, from the U.S., it's 93%. There's something else baked into that number.
Sure. Look, we looked at both tariffs, which are very kind of easy. It's a quick number you can slap on there, but the bigger problem at play are the non-tariff trade barriers, and that's things like currency manipulation, where countries make their currencies cheaper to be able to sell to us cheaper.
All right, pause there for a second. How do you quantify that? Because if you ask the country you're manipulating your currency, they say, no, we're not. So then, I mean, is there some sort of independent arbiter that says, yes, they are manipulating their currency?
Look, I guess I'm not a math guy, but you can basically run mathematical calculations and look at what their central banks and governments are doing, where they print more of their money to basically make it cheaper. And so that way, if more, whatever Madagascar's currency is, if more of those dollars go to convert into U.S. dollars, their exports become cheaper.
Well,
and it's one of many ways. Yeah,
so based on that argument, weren't we guilty of that under Biden when we just kept printing money to pay for all of his programs? I mean, that sort of manipulated our currency down.
It did, but the difference is that when Biden did it, it was just incompetence, and it led to higher prices at the grocery store and the gas pump and everywhere else for everyday Americans. When these countries do it, they're a lot smarter than Joe Biden. They're not asleep at the wheel, and they're doing it in a calculated way to help their economy and help their workers, which is the exact opposite of what Joe Biden was doing for 4 years.
Cassie, that is actually the national motto for Madagascar: smarter than Biden. Visit Madagascar.
Put it on the flag. Hi, Kush. I have to tell you, Kush and I used to work together.
Oh, is that right?
Yes. If you need something found out, call this guy.
As cool as it is to work in the West Wing, look at where you are right now.
Yeah, I think you've gotten a glow up on your job, Kush, but we enjoyed working together, right? But one of the things, and I think the rollout yesterday was wonderful at allaying some of the concerns that the mainstream media has really been propagating to fearmonger to the American people about what this is going to mean. Prices are going up, blah, blah, blah. But can you talk to us a little bit about what this might look like in the immediate, but why this is good in the long term, or why, to the people we were talking about earlier, those who live in these communities across America that have been hollowed out as a result of bad trade practices or unfair trade practices, why this is the right thing to do right now?
Sure. Look, this is a national emergency. When we run trade deficits as we have for decades, trillions of dollars every year, that amounts to trillions of dollars of wealth being taken out of this country by foreigners. That represents our industrial heartland being hollowed out. Factories that are shuttering down and empty everywhere from Pennsylvania to Michigan to Wisconsin. That represents communities losing jobs, workers losing their source of employment. I mean, the problems here cascade well beyond just, these numbers on a paper that say that we have a trade deficit. That trade deficit is reflective of American communities getting, like I said, hollowed out.
Yeah.
And so our goal here, and the president's goal here, is to revitalize the American nation, revitalize those main streets that have gone empty and that have gotten shuttered down.
It's taken.
We're looking at a long term.
It's taken. Well, exactly. That's what I'm going to ask you. It's taken about 25 years for this to reach the point where we're at right now. How quickly does the president and the administration expect manufacturing to restart in some of these communities? That's not an overnight thing.
No, it's not. But look, we've already gotten trillions in historic investment commitments from companies like TSMC, NVIDIA, Apple. I mean, they're pouring trillions of dollars back into the United States to build here, to build factories here, to build R&D facilities here. So we're seeing this already happen. And the other point I really want to emphasize here is that, tariffs are a big part of what we're doing, but it's just one part. And when you look at deregulation, and the Biden people put in trillions of dollars worth of regulation on our economy, and those are added costs every year onto our economy. We're slashing regulations. We're slashing government spending, which caused inflation in the first place, which caused the Federal Reserve to have to hike interest rates, which made it more expensive for businesses to be able to expand and invest, for people to buy homes. So this is a whole of economy approach here to really get growth going and really help Main Street pick up again.
Got it. Thank you. Kush, DESAI, we're up against it. It's a tight clock here on the morning show, but we appreciate you joining us, Deputy Press Secretary Kuh-sh DESAI. Thank you, sir. It's 7.
Thanks for having me.
WMAL's Vince Colonnese, weekdays at noon on 105.9 WMAL, making sense of the news.
Time for a road trip, Cassie. A lot of people in this area are going to be heading down to Rockingham County, Virginia, about 2.5 hours from D.C., because on June 30th, it'll be the grand opening of the very first Buc-ee's this far north. Yeah.
Have you been to a Buc-ee's?
No, I've never been to a Buc-ee's.
Are you familiar with the lore of Buc-ee's?
Just a little bit. People will rave about Buc-ee's, and I'm like, that's a place for food, right? And so, yeah, but there's so much more. I said, okay, well, so what's the food like? And they say, well, let's start with the bathrooms.
Yes.
It's like, I'm sorry. If you're trying to tell me how great the food is at a place and it begins with the urinal quality, I'm a little disturbed. But apparently there are awesome bathrooms.
The world's cleanest, they claim.
All right.
All I know is I have friends who really pride themselves on dressing their children very sweet and cute. And then they're like, and then we went to Buc-ee's and now they just wear these Buc-ee pajama pants.
All they want is that bucktooth logo everywhere. Yeah.
Yes, it's on everything. They're obsessed.
Well, merchandise is important and branding is important. I mean, their most popular food item is beaver nuggets.
I don't want to know what that's all about. I'm going to pass just outright.
Anyway, we might have to do a special WMAL road trip down there. I know that Governor Youngkin is very excited about this Buc-ee's. He's very proud to be the governor overseeing the opening of the very first Buc-ee's in Virginia. So good on him, and maybe we'll do a road trip together.
Reporting live from Buc-ee's.
From the bathroom. Be kind of echoey in there. 7:53.